What's up, guys? This is cielshock from CTUSA Mini 4-Wheel Drive Racing Squad, and I'm a teacher here in NewWorks. And today we're going to talk about the chassis that was released the same year that Japan Cup came back. So the year is 2012. Everybody is excited to race again, especially my generation. A lot of modification in Mini 4-Wheel Drive world is happening, especially after MS chassis was released. And today we're not going to talk about Linsanity in New York. I know that was a big hit back that year. We're not going to talk about like people having speculations and theories that it's in the end of the world. And we're definitely not going to talk about the Gundam style. But we're going to talk about your AR chassis. So we're going to go in depth with this chassis. We're going to talk about its strengths and weaknesses, all its stats and history straight out from the box. Again, the year is 2012, so a lot of modification is happening. And Japan Cup 2012 is officially gonna happen that year, and it's called the Niagara Falls. So this chassis is very, very interesting and very, very durable, and you're gonna find out its strengths and weaknesses. And in my opinion, this is one of the chassis that's very hard. I mean, it's tough to modify, but it's worth it when you actually figure it out and put a lot of work in it. So I'm not gonna hold you down. We're gonna talk about an AR chassis, and we're gonna talk about a brief history about it. And we're going to go to Girly right now.
Hi guys, so the AR chassis is a mini 4-wheel drive chassis released by Tamiya in July of 2012. It was first seen with the release of AERO Avanti, and the AR stands for AERO Racing. The AR chassis has the same long wheelbase as the Super TC chassis has. Unlike most of the chassis, it features the aerodynamic designs all over the chassis, and the batteries and motor can easily swap out by removing the under panel parts, providing much more simple maintenance compared to the other chassis. The underbody of the chassis is curved and flat, with the rear motor cover and roller stays acts as diffusers, allows smooth air flows under the car. There's also several air ducts that are made to dissipate heats from the batteries and motor while running. However, the air ducts placed on the top of the chassis is only useful while using body shells from Mini 4-Wheel Drive Rev series cars. Now, the front bumper and rear roller stays has been extended to provide smoother cornering, and there's multiple screw holes to provide better parts attachments. The rear roller stays are not removable by design, and there's a brake skid bar attached under them. Unlike the previous chassis, the secondary parts, including rollers and bearing, were molded in the low-friction POM or polyoxymethylene plastic, and this eliminates the brass bearing eyelets from the bearings altogether. Due to how rigid the chassis was designed, it is stronger than any single-shaft motor-driven chassis to date. The battery switch is the curved slide type, and due to how it is designed, the car is unlikely to turn itself off while running. It also serves as the locking mechanism for the battery panel, as it prevents the under panel from detaching itself from the chassis while running. Performance-wise, it performs better than any rear motor shaft-driven Mini 4-wheel drive chassis to date. However, due to its weight and long wheelbase, its cornering and acceleration performances are a little inferior than that of Super 2 chassis. Now let's move on to cielshock for the stats.
Thank you, Girly, and now we're going to talk about the chassis stats. But before I start, let me remind you guys that all these chassis stats that I'm going to give you is straight out from the box with no modification, no cutting, or no upgraded parts included, as this is just straight out from the box from Tamiya. It is divided to toughness, acceleration, cornering, stability, adaptability, and ease of maintenance. AR chassis is very balanced. As you can see, the toughness is 4.5 will make sense because the chassis is very rigid. Acceleration is 4.5, which is only 0.5 slower than the Super 2 and the VS. And cornering is 4 probably because of the long wheelbase. Stability is 4. Adaptability is 4.5, which is very awesome because of probably a lot of holes and there's a lot of attachment that you can put to it. Stability is probably because of its long wheelbase. And ease of maintenance is 4.52, so it's very easy to maintain. So this chassis is very balanced if you look at it. Again, toughness is 4.5, acceleration is 4.5, cornering is 4, stability is 4, adaptability is 4.5, and ease of maintenance is 4.5. And now we're gonna go build this car in 2 seconds. What's up, guys? Right here now we're gonna build our AR chassis, and we're gonna get a closer look. And this is hella lit, if you guys can see it. This is the body. This is the body lock. The battery lock, the motor catch, gear cover, all that fun stuff, and switch and such. All right. So this chassis, here's the body. So this chassis is very tough because they have a toughness of 4.5. As you can see, this chassis, there's a lot of solid parts. There's not a lot of holes, but there's also a lot of adaptable holes over there, but mostly solid parts. That's why this car is very rigid and its toughness of 4.5 straight out from the box. So this is one of the toughest chassis that you can find over there in the mini 4-wheel drive world. Also, it's the only chassis that your battery you can put your batteries underneath. It doesn't, the traditional mini 4-wheel drive, the batteries the battery slot is over here, but now it's down here. So that makes sense for the stability too. The chassis length is 155 millimeters, which is from here to here. That also explains why the stability of this chassis is very high, which is 4. And the width of this chassis is 97 millimeters from here to here with rollers, and the wheelbase is 82 millimeters from here to here, which is quite long. That's why it explains also why Super 2 and VS chassis is quite faster from this compared to this chassis, because of its length. The acceleration is 4.5 and cornering is 4. The stability is 4, as I've said earlier. Adaptability is 4.5, and it explains a lot why it's adaptable because of the holes that this chassis have. And there's a lot of upgrade parts and hop-up parts that you can use with this chassis. Ease of maintenance is 4.5. As you can see, it's very easy to maintain. As I finish it, I'm gonna show you how easy to maintain this chassis. The motor goes over here too. All right. When I'm building an AR chassis, I start with the gears. The compatibility of the gears are 5-1, 4-1, 4-2-1, 3-7-1, and 3-5-1, which is pretty much every gear ratio. Here's the 3-5-1 that I have, which is the biggest counter gear, and you don't have to change any of this gear cover, like if you remember on my Super 1 video and a TZ video, you have to change the gear cover, but on AR you don't have to. Yeah, all the gears are compatible. All right, so this is where the gear cover goes. There's a hook right there. You hook it over there and then you snap. It's easy. So you have your gear cover over there. Next, what I do is I put the gears and the plastic bushings. Take a closer look with these plastic bushings. These are different compared to your traditional plastic bushings that you have. It's made of polyoxymethylene, which is low friction plastic bushings, which is way smoother compared to the one with a copper eyelet and bushing from older chassis. So there you go. There, you put it over there and you put it on the other side. We're using pink gears and yellow 3-5-1 gears. Take note of this. You can't use orange gears even though you modified this or for floating transmission, because that's only for FM chassis, Super X and Super XX chassis, and FMA. So that will not be legal for official Tamiya rules, but it depends on your house rules, what your house rules are. So I have a medium diameter wheel low profile here, and that's how I slide it. The ground clearance as I put the wheels is 2.5 with a low profile small diameter wheels, which is very low. That's why also it explains straight out from the box it's stable. The score is 4, which is very, very high. All right, so moving on, we're gonna go to the front of the car, and we're also using a pink gear. So pink gear goes over here. I usually use put the wheel shaft away from the gear so it's easier to adjust when you're trying to find the holes. Just only one tip that I can give you. Trying to look for the other bushings over here if I can find it. All right, it's right here. Slide it over there. There you go. So with the low profile, medium, small diameter wheels, it's 2.5 millimeters. With large diameter, it's 5 millimeters. With the large diameter arc tire. So I don't have that one. I use the slow. All right. So this is the switch. The switch is different compared to other slide switch because this is also a slide, but it's a slide curve switch. This is one flaws of the AERO chassis for newbies. This switch tends to slide on and off during races if you put too much oil, and it depends how you put your terminals. If your terminals is way bent, it tends to slide during race, and it's very frustrating. And if you guys follow me on some races, my AERO chassis tends to die sometimes. On my older race, probably like 2 years ago, that's my newbie mistake. So, but the terminals are X-type. So the front terminal switch goes here. This one is the one that's one flaws of the AERO chassis. But there are ways to compensate that, like fix that. Some people put a brace or like a carbon piece over there. But yeah, the propeller shaft the AERO chassis uses is a 60 millimeter propeller shaft. It's almost universal, which Super 1, Super 2, VS chassis, TZ, TZX, AERO chassis shares the same propeller shaft, which is 60 millimeters. So a lot of chassis is using 60 millimeter propeller shaft. All right, so the lock goes over here for the switch. So there's a clamp right there. It clamps over there. It hooks over there. And then you just push it over there. Slide. So it basically snaps over there. Alright, so there you go. As you can see, I want you guys to take a closer look over here. So the transmission is over here, which you're composed with your gears. And your 351 gears. And crown gear and your propeller shaft over there. So it's underneath. So the movement of this propeller shaft while it's running, it tends to go up and down or left and right. So that one flaws of the AERO chassis, and that's one reason why the transmission is loud. So people were messaging me, why AERO chassis is loud? It's because of that structure over there. So it's underneath. So all the weight and the gravity pull obviously is downward, and you put your propeller shaft from underneath, so it goes up and downward, compared to the one that you put on top. So that's the reason why it's loud. But there are ways to compensate it and fix it. Some put some carbon pieces over there and on this piece, but that would be a different video because this is just from straight out from the box. But that's one flaws of the AERO chassis. But still good. Alright, moving on. Again, the terminals are X-type. So goes here. It's basically like the same as the other chassis. It all snap. Alright. I have a 130 motor over here, stock motor. It's pretty the same. It clamps over here, snap it. Alright, take note and remember this. In Tamiya official rules, this pink pinion gear or a white pinion gear is not allowed using for an AERO chassis. Alright, there's an explanation for it. The Tamiya rules, they said the power of the drivetrain of the AERO chassis is too strong, and this pinion gears can't handle the strength of the motor, or whatever is the reason is. But for my opinion, on different house rules, you can use this pinion gear, but on official Tamiya rules, this is not allowed. Alright, the only thing that is allowed is the carbon pinion gear and the metal pinion gear. In some reason, Tamiya think that the power of the motor going through the AERO chassis is not, the pinion gear is not gonna handle it. Alright, so I'm just using it because I'm just showing it to you, but for Tamiya races, for official races, I don't use the pink pinion gear for official Tamiya races. Alright, so it goes over there. See, it goes underneath like that, which is very, very user friendly. And this is your motor catch. There's hooks over here that goes over here and goes like that. Alright, so the batteries goes over here underneath, and the positive goes over there, negative goes over there, And then that's the battery cover. You slide. Almost done here. So this is what the bare AR chassis look like. As you can see, the undercover is flat and it's so low. If I can show you right here, which also explains about its stability again. That's how low it is to the ground. See, it's very low. There you go. And also, the AR chassis have a skid bar that acts like brake over here. Right here, you put it over here. Right. On my next video, there's another chassis with a skid bar, but I will not spoil it. So you put the washers over there for skid bars, and you put your screws over here. There you go. Some people put it up front, but by default, from the box, should be here at the rear side. Alright. There you go. Then put the other one. And then put the other one. Alright. So you can see it's still new. So I have to screw it really all the way to the chassis. You have the option to remove this if you're racing stock. I highly recommend AR chassis for stock racing, because for box stock you're only using the stock motor, and AR chassis is fast and stable. And there you go. So you got your skid bar on the rear side. So you can see underneath there's some air ducts over here. So you can see. So when the car is running, the aerodynamically whatever chassis, whatever body shell you have, as you run, there's air ducts over here. So the airflow goes here and goes inside. It acts like a cooling system for your motor. See how crazy it is? See the air ducts over there. I didn't really notice when I first had an AR chassis, but it goes through there. And it acts like a cooling system for the AR chassis from the heat from the batteries and the motor, you know. So that's very interesting. Alright, so we're gonna put the rollers. I'm gonna put the rollers now. I color match my rollers. Got yellow and orange from other kits. So the angle of this roller by default from the AR chassis, if you don't modify it, straight out from the box, is 5 degrees. Alright, so that angle that you can see, that default angle is 5 degrees. So obviously if you modify the car, you can improve that angle, that 5 degree angle, but by default it's 5 degrees. So that's also, I guess, explain why stability is 4 and it's not a perfect 5, because it's not perfectly angled. It's not higher than 5 degrees. There you go. And also one thing, these rollers are double rollers. It's not just a single roller at the rear, because on past chassis that we featured, there's only the slots for the rollers are not as thick as this. This is, you can put double rollers. You can put, at this one I'll put it in the front. You can put 2 rollers, because when you buy an AR chassis from the kit and you buy an half apart, like this orange one, you can put 2. See, that makes sense again why this chassis is very stable straight out from the box compared to others like compared to VS, Super 1, Super 2, and other chassis, because stability is really awesome. And it's pretty balanced in my opinion. So I would suggest this chassis for pro stock. A lot of people is using it for pro stock in the Philippines. I know there's another stock race in other countries like Indonesia which they mix match parts of the stock car, and they can use any motor. But in the Philippines, it's called Pro Stock, and they can use different stock parts from each kit, which is amazing. So I definitely recommend this chassis because of its balance statistics. And for technical, some people use it for technical races. There's also technical races in the Philippines. I don't race technical myself, so I can't really suggest to use this car for technical races, but I've seen people use it and it works for them. Yeah, so there's the rollers. The rollers is also made of polyoxymethylene material, which is low friction rollers. And that's made the car faster and the rollers faster compared to the older kits before 2012. All right, so we're talking about 2012 here. So the older chassis doesn't have the polyoxymethylene material on their rollers, on their bushings. That's why this bushing doesn't have the brass eyelet. It makes sense because it makes it smoother. All right, so you can see it's running and it's pretty loud. All right, so there's a problem with this chassis. As I've said, that part goes up and down, and when you run this, it's loud, but when you press it over here, it gets quiet a little bit. You hear that? Because the propeller shaft is not well aligned, because it keeps on moving, and that's for you to find out how you will compensate that. I have some ways, but that would be on the different video. But that's for you to find out how will you compensate that weakness. See? When you hold it, it gets quiet for a little bit. So that's your modification comes in. For Speed Tech, I will highly recommend this too. For Tamiya class, Tune class, both Tune class, modified Tune class and basic Tune class, I will recommend this car too, because this is very durable, rigid, and adaptable. And obviously in Tamiya class, you can just like cut it, make it lighter, you know, because this chassis is the heaviest chassis for single shaft motor chassis. All right, for single shaft motor chassis, this chassis is the heaviest. So if I will do Speed Tech or Tamiya class, I will make holes and make it as light as possible. I will make it like crazy light, like hella light. And I will make holes. I will cut it to make it shorter, because you know it's longer, so you have that stable stance already. So I will cut it, make it the rollers closer to the body. I will probably use a little bit higher wheels, bigger wheels, to make it high a little bit, because you already have the low center of gravity because of the batteries underneath. It works for you, and you have to do a lot of work with the transmission, because the transmission is really loud. All right, again, you can't use those pinion gears on official Tamiya rules, because those most likely will break. And in Tamiya rules, you can only use brass, metal pinion gears and carbon pinion gears. But in some house rules, and a lot of house rules, they allow that. But in Tamiya rules, it's not. All right, it's not allowed. All right, so that's what it looks like. I have a Shadow Shark body shell over here. All right, which is perfect. And there's your lock. You see that lock? Very cool design. Alright, so that's your AR chassis. One trivia before I go. The first Avanti AR chassis, AERO Avanti, is have a little flaws. If somebody bought that kit, it had a problem with the rear side of the chassis, with constantly contacting with the side of the chassis, with the inner part with the narrow rear small. So if you have a narrow rear small diameter like this up front, and you put it over here, it hits the chassis on the first mold. That's why it's get recalled and they made another chassis. So take a look at that. There are some chassis that those wheels, the mold, it creates a lot of power loss, especially on AERO Avanti kits with AR chassis. All right, first AERO Avanti kits, but the AERO Thundershot, they fixed the mold, starting with the AERO Thundershot kits. So AERO Thundershot is fine, but the AERO Avanti kits, the first AERO Avanti kits, this will rub in the back with those kind of tires. All right, so the inner part or the narrow. The AR chassis is compatible with body shells of TZ and Super TZX, and mostly the version releases early. You know, your Vanishing Gazers, your Buck Bladers, your Magnum, your Beat Magnum, your Hurricane Sonic. It will fit with a AR chassis because most AR chassis with the early release, it was TZ. It was from the anime. It's just like a graded version of the TZ and TZX, so it's most likely compatible. The Draken and the Wild Mini 4-wheel drives, like your Sunny Shuttle, one of the famous kits with the truck. It's compatible if you have that middle part. They have this middle part that you can attach it over here, I think, and the side body catch. It's called the side body catch that you put over here, so you can put the truck. It comes with that comes out with a kit, and you can also buy it as a hop apart. But if you really want a truck body shell, you can use that. The Jolly Jokers, the Sunny Shuttles, yeah, you have a side part over there. Also remember that some body shells are not completely compatible. One example is the Tiger Sap, which is the body shell is designed a bumper attachment. It does have a protruding nose, so the bumper attachment, this one's kind of deep if you take a closer look at it. So the Tiger Sap, you have to have a modification if you want to use the Tiger Sap. But and also some like the Thunder Boomerangs, but mostly of the TZ chassis, mostly the TZ chassis body shells will fit on the AR, mostly, but not all of them. Yeah, so as I've said, this is the heaviest chassis for the single shaft motor. It's second to the heaviest chassis on all Mini 4-wheel drive series and chassis. So I will not spoil it because our next video is gonna be second to the last chassis on our chassis series. So that's pretty much it. With batteries, the weight of this chassis is 123.3 grams. Woo, heavy. And without batteries is 71 grams. So that's really heavy. So that explains everything. To sum up everything, toughness is 4.5 again. So as you can see, it's very rigid and tough. Acceleration is 4.5. A little bit slower compared to Super 2, but fast enough for me. Cornering is 4 because of its wide stance. And it's wide body. Stability is 4 because of the what you call this, the gravity, the full of gravity, because the batteries are really low, the gravitational full. And then adaptability is 4.5. As you can see, it's very, very adaptable. A lot of holes, a lot of modification you can do, you can cut and everything. Ease of maintenance 4.5. You see that? Easy. Boom, boom. Change the batteries. Boom, boom. See? You can remove it, clean it. Very easy. So that's why it's 4.5. To sum it up, alright, you can use it for pro stock. I'll suggest it with pro stock. Some people use it at technical races. I will suggest it in Tamiya class, in speed tech. And before I forget, one of my frustrated categories, box stock, which is you can only use stock motor, which is sad. But I will highly recommend this on stock races, because it does have the option to put double rollers to begin with. It does have the low friction polyoxymethylene rollers and polyoxymethylene bushings, and you also have the skid bar. It's very stable. That's all. And this is just like almost perfect 5, but 4.5 and 4. You know, that's the stats that it does. It's so balanced. That's what makes this chassis very special. Alright, so before I go, don't forget to hit that like button if you like it. And also hit the dislike button if you don't like this video. And hit the notification button so every time I make a video, you will have a notification. As I always say, always race humble. This is Cielshock. We learn from you. You learn from us. Peace.